maybe talking a bit more about how Etherealize fits into Ethereum's role in global finance as you see it. So how do you see sort of Etherealize, what role is it playing in that? And I think maybe as a secondary layer to this that would be great to understand, I think maybe even driving it, like, why do we need Etherealize? Like, why does it need to exist, in your opinion?
So I wanted to bring blockchains as solutions to real problems. People have said for almost a decade that blockchains initially had been a solution in search of a problem. And so when the world was finally ready for institutional adoption of public blockchains, when and Larry Fink started saying the whole world's going to be tokenized and people raced to start to implement blockchain strategies, there was no very accessible touch point for the Ethereum ecosystem specifically and to bring institutional assets onto Ethereum. And that's a feature, not a bug. The reason is Ethereum's a decentralized network. Ethereum's like the internet. Ethereum doesn't have centralized business development. Ethereum doesn't have centralized policy. It doesn't have a political a race in politics at all. It's a global neutral infrastructure technology. That's why it's so powerful. But there weren't that many advocates for it, specifically on Wall Street. When it, in my view, Ethereum is the answer to how we can upgrade Wall Street infrastructure in a responsible, secure way. So that was the need to exist. Someone needed to go around and educate people and say, here's how you tokenize assets. Here's how you can have your own customized blockchain and environments and plug into global liquidity that's Ethereum. And to understand what this whole layer two ecosystem looks like. People have to understand that ETH is actually a really interesting store of value asset that should be in a portfolio alongside Bitcoin. And that all this weaves together and the whole financial system can be upgraded if we adopt Ethereum technology. No one was doing that. So I mean, the cool part about open source technology and global infrastructure is anyone can step in and say, we'll go educate. And I got that opportunity and I'm very thankful for it. Since then, the first 6 to 8 months was a lot of education. And education will always be a part of the story because blockchains are unbelievable infrastructure, but people need to learn about what they can do, why they're ready, why they're safe, why Ethereum as a public network is the most secure, most global, most adopted network. People need to constantly be educated. So that will always be a pillar. But about 6 to 8 months in, it turned out that we actually had to help create the products and services to onboard institutions. And so we also started building out the technology part of Etherealize. And when we announced that, I mean, the best in the entire Ethereum ecosystem came in. Danny Ryan, who oversaw the merge of Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake, came on as a co-founder. Zach Obron, who's I think arguably one of the best engineers in the entire world, or especially in the Ethereum ecosystem, he came on board. Some Ethereum OGs like Grant Hummer came on as a co-founder. So the talent started pouring in, which just showed me that there really was a market demand to learn about Ethereum. The real turning point was when some legends from Wall Street also started pouring in saying, hey, we want to be part of this. We want to help. Let's help merge these worlds together. And that's when we realized that there is actual product market fit for Ethereum. We just needed someone to step in and say, here's how assets can responsibly come out of public blockchains, and that's what Etherealize is doing.
Yeah, and when you talk about, sort of Wall Street infrastructure, I always think it's important to maybe even ground folks on like what that is and like how behind the times it still is. I can remember when I was at Morgan Stanley and at some point being exposed to how the firm manages risk, how it books trades, how it like handles a lot of the infrastructure around sales and trading and investment banking operations. And I literally have seen technology that looks like slightly more advanced, maybe not even as advanced as like DOS prompting from like, your first experience with Windows. So maybe can you talk to me a little bit about what you experienced on Wall Street from just like a infrastructure status quo perspective and sort of compare that to, how embedded that status quo sort of is today, and sort of like, moving forward to sort of another set of rails, or integrating Ethereum and digital assets and blockchain in a way that's forward looking.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say I have a lot of empathy and I love the role that Wall Street plays. Like the US has the best capital markets in the world. Wall Street's the envy of everyone's financial system. Like the bar is very, very high. But part of that is because Wall Street and US capital markets have worked so well, there isn't really an impetus to change. So we do use outdated technology. A lot of the systems of banks are literally, they were built on COBOL and it was good enough. So people just kept it that way. People use for moving trillions of dollars, they keep Excel spreadsheet entries on local computers of their positions and their risk. And that's just, it works. So people just kept it going that way. But what that results in is there's a lot of just mess. There's reconciliation requirements everywhere. Every bank has different systems. There's no standardization. Trades are still done on phones. Confirms are still sent via fax machines. Wire transfers are sent sort of whenever people want to send their wire transfers for trade proceeds. Like there's so many breaks in the system because of human behavior, and it still works. It still works reasonably well. And the credit markets, the mortgage markets, the commodities markets, they're all Wall Street's the backbone of the global economy. But there is an opportunity to say, okay, let's take a technology that's very positive sum, and then by plugging in more and more of these processes to public blockchains, you can actually upgrade the whole system. And it's a very positive sum. I think for a long time, Wall Street players, TradFi, thought that blockchains would cannibalize their activity. It actually doesn't. It actually allows for more capital formation, allows for more streamlined operations, allows for more trading, allows for more velocity. Once Wall Street starts to realize they can make more money using blockchains and cut more costs, that's pretty powerful. And that's where we are now in the blockchain adoption cycle. And that's why everyone's racing to adopt this, because it's now ready. But that's how the financial system was in the past. And it takes a lot of inertia to change it. But I think we have enough momentum.